Okay, real estate update on real estate wholesaling. Real estate wholesaling is a business practice that the general public is probably not familiar with. And there are many companies that advertise that they will buy your house, and some of them are real estate wholesalers, some of them are not. But what wholesaling is, and it has become a huge industry in the last probably 8 to 10 years, it's become a huge industry. But wholesaling is when you contract with a house buying company, and let's just say, for instance, you contract with them for $200,000 on your property. They will often mark the property up $30,000 to $40,000, say to $240,000. So you're under contract for $200,000. They mark it up to $240,000. They send the property out to their database of investors, or sometimes they list it for sale in the MLS, but they market the property for a higher price than what they're under contract with you for. If they can find a buyer, they will assign their contract over to another investor, and they pocket the difference between the $200,000 that they're under contract with you for and the $240,000 that they sold it to the investor for. So that is how real estate wholesaling works. There are some very good, very ethical wholesalers that explain the process thoroughly. And there are some wholesalers that tell you that they're buying your house for cash. They never mention that they're going to assign the contract to another investor. They never mention that they're going to list the property potentially in the MLS. And you find out at some point during the process that your property is being sold to a third party. So there's some great ethical wholesalers, which I have worked with and had good relationships with, and I appreciate the work that they do. But there are also some wholesalers that are not ethical, that do not explain the process. And I think wholesaling is an okay practice, but there needs to be transparency. If you're a seller, you need to know your property is being sold to a third party. You need to know that it's being listed in the MLS prior to closing. Because what happens is, on the negative side of this, if the wholesaler does not procure a buyer, if they don't find a buyer, many times they will come back to you and say, well, we know we contracted with you for $200,000, but guess what? We can't perform on this contract, and we've got an inspection period, and we're going to terminate this contract, or we contracted with you for $200,000, we're going to only give you $170,000. So those are questions. If you're dealing with a We Buy House company and you're selling your house and you're a seller, you need to know if the contract's assignable. You need to know if there's an inspection period, meaning an inspection period means that the contract can be terminated by the buyer without penalty. Is there an inspection period? Is the contract assignable, meaning can the investor transfer the contract to another investor? And you're basically, you have no say-so in it. If the contract's assignable, they can transfer your contract to someone else, and you don't know about it until closing. So those are some things. One, is the contract assignable? Two, is there an inspection period? Three, how much earnest money do they have down? Do they have down $1,000 or $5,000? Those are some important questions. Also, another important question is, if they cannot find a buyer for your property prior to closing, do they intend to close on the purchase? And I would say in 80% of the cases, they do not. They will not close with you if they don't find a buyer. So as a seller, those are some questions you should ask. Like I said, there are some very good, very transparent wholesalers, which I have worked with and I hold in high regard. but there are also some wholesalers that don't explain anything to you, and they just sort of throw a contract on your property and hope for the best, and if they don't find a buyer, they back out. So anyway, this is your education today on real estate wholesaling, what the practice is, how it works. There's definitely some other variables to it, but as a seller, if you are thinking about selling to a wholesaler, these are some important questions that you should ask. And of course, if you don't sell to a wholesaler, to a house buying company, you can always go the traditional route and call a local realtor, pay the 6% commission, which in some cases is a bargain. So that's just a little information for you to think about. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me. Norris Bishop Realty, 229-890-1186. Thanks a lot.